full of women, which is such an honor to be in this room with you guys, by the way. You guys. You ladies. Today, our conversation is a continuation of menopause. I have been honorably anointed into this conversation by none other than Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King. So here to break it down, please welcome our OBGYN and Drew crewer, Dr. Suzanne Gilberg-Lenz. And psychiatrist, Dr. Judith Joseph. Thank you for joining this conversation. And the two people that are about to walk out here are just incredible pioneers of the conversation. They wear it like a badge of honor. They're launching books. They're launching companies. Please welcome the amazing Naomi Watts and Brooke Shields. Okay, you guys have products, we have books, we have layers to get through. Maybe to start off, you know, we've spoken about this before, but where did your journey begin? The origin story, if you will, Naomi.
Settle in now. Okay, so at 36, I was at the precipice of wanting to start a family, and I went to my doctor and said, I'm confused about why I'm not getting pregnant, and he said, let's take some blood work. So the blood panel came back, and it suggested, in his words, quote unquote, looks like you're close to menopause at 36.
It feels extremely early?
It feels extremely early and shocking to someone who was trying to start a family. Wait a second, this is what I came here for, not to learn that. You know, this was, you know, it created such panic in me. A light went off. I remembered that my mom had said that she had gone into early menopause at 45. And I remember calling my mom straight after in tears, going, what is this? Why didn't you tell me more? And she said, well, these were the conversations I didn't have with my mother, so I never had them with you. And it was no blame on her. It was just the societal message that was passed from generation to generation that we suffer in silence.
Yeah. So what did you do?
Well, I mean, it's a big, long story, and I go into it in depth in the
this
book.
Amazing book, dare I say it. It's incredible, you guys.
For whatever reason, lots of different things, I think, converging all at once, I was able to get pregnant naturally. But after my second child at 40, I went hardcore into symptoms. And that's when I, you know, really had to piecemeal information together to get to that point.
You don't know the questions to ask, per
yes,
se. I mean, I do a lot of research in my book because I wanted to make sure that I could substantiate what I was feeling. And so many doctors say, we've talked about this, that they never even were taught a course or class on menopause.
Which is insane.
Insane. And they're full, they're doctors. And you would, the number of them, I don't remember the exact number, but you're just thinking, oh, they're not even, the medical professionals are not even being taught to be able to then answer our questions, but we don't know what questions to ask.
What were you experiencing when you wanted to start a conversation?
So my sort of brush with menopause was very, it had stages. And one of the first times I was working in Charleston, and I had this suede coat on. It was inside a car. And when I tell you that it looked like a bucket of water was just
like
pouring.
A chamois.
It was like.
Thank you.
Somebody just filled it. A ShamWow or whatever.
Yes, ShamWow. I missed those.
Yeah, I missed those too. That's funny. But it was like it kept pouring, and they couldn't mop it off. Finally, the director said, "Okay, we're going to have to take some time." I had to get out of the car, and she walked me around, and she said, "You know, it just might be. And I went, might be what? And I didn't know what she was talking about. And then she said, well, maybe a bit of the peri. And I was so embarrassed. I was shocked that the same thing was happening, that we weren't being informed.
I also, if I didn't grow up in a household that spoke about this either. And so when you don't know, you don't know.
How crazy is it that every single person in this room, if they're lucky enough to get to be this age, is going to go through this? And we all have the same story.
Yeah.
All of us have the same story. I didn't know what was going on. My mom didn't talk to me about it. My doctor didn't know. Blew it off. What is going on? What we're doing here, I say this every time I'm here, it's so powerful.
Thanks to you guys, we're making it less confusing.
But also, there's this...
Which is a miracle.
I also think another sort of element to it is the psychology of it is something that is so not talked about either. And I remember probably one of my worst symptoms I did not know was a symptom. And it was a period of time where when I say everything bothered me, everything bothered me. And my daughter finally, one of them was just saying, she screamed at me, she goes, "You are no fun to be around." And I was just like, oh my God. She goes, you're on edge all the time. We get it. You're tired. We get it. You're working. And all of a sudden I was terribly guilty about, I shouldn't have taken on so much. What am I doing? And I couldn't snap at them, and they're going to college. And oh God, this is what they're going to remember. This is going to be what they're going to write about in their book. That's really what I was worried about.
You've written so many that it's like, okay, Dr. Judith, I think that's a perfect segue because I wanted to get into the mental, the psychological. Where do we start?
Well, let's start with the mind-body connection. What you were talking about were these vulnerable periods in life. You are an advocate for women's mental health. Things like...
And have been for a very long time.
So with the periods, when you first get your period, think of a teenager who's moody. That's hormones. Hormonal fluctuations cause that. When you're postpartum and you're experiencing sadness when you just gave birth, that's hormonal fluctuations. Hormonal fluctuations cause some of the mood symptoms like depression, anxiety. It mimics it, but it's not a true condition. And we were taught that the hormones go down in a smooth slope. We know that's not the truth now. It's actually a bumpy ride. It's like boom, 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 boom. There's actually something called affect labeling. So affect labeling is when you know what you're dealing with, the anxiety goes down. If you don't know what you're dealing with, the automatic go-to for most women is, I feel guilty, I'm a bad mother. So you internalize the guilt, blame, and shame because you don't know what you're dealing with. But if you have a name for it, if you say, these are the mood symptoms related to perimenopause, menopause, or this is the anxiety related to it, you have a name for it. And that tells the human brain that, okay, we don't have to be afraid anymore. The anxiety goes down. So it's therapeutic in itself to name it. Yeah. But if you have a doctor who doesn't know what it is, they project their lack of, knowing, their insecurities onto you, so then you feel insecure and you blame yourself.
All right, we need to take a quick break, but we have so many questions. We're going to talk about treatments, hormones, antidepressants, approaches. That's next.